Welcome back to another episode of Team Building Tips with Dan Talbot. We'll be right back with Dan's episode for this week, but we want to give a shout out to our podcast partners, We Coach and the Global Community of Women in High School Sports, two great organizations that you really need to be a part of. And now let's have a quick word from our podcast sponsors. We want to say thanks to Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. Go to hometownticketing.com. They're going to show you how to set up and sell tickets for your school online. They'll show you how to scan the attendees that come to your games and collect your revenue. And every step of the way, you'll have a dedicated client success manager that's providing hands-on support. Go to hometownticketing.com. They'll also show you how to set up and sell tickets for things like school dances, your school plays and concerts, even graduation. That's hometownticketing.com. Simple and easy online ticketing. We also want to thank Snap Raise. Go to onsnap.com. That's onsnap.com and check out their entire suite of platforms designed to help you do the very best job you can as an AD. Snap Raise is their fundraising platform. You can raise thousands of dollars, and there's even a program where you can get your money before you even start your fundraiser. Snap Spend is their secure, transparent money management platform. Snap Store allows you to raise or order custom gear for your fans, for your players, for everybody in your program. Snap Connect is their multilingual family engagement platform. And Snap Manage, they will help you design a brand new athletic website. You can find it all at onsnap.com. That's onsnap.com. We want to thank Gipper. Go to Gipper.com and see how athletic directors and coaches are creating world-class marketing content for their school's social media channel. You can do it in seconds on any device, and you don't need any design experience. Go to Gipper.com and use the podcast code ADPOD10, that's ADPOD10, and get 10% off. Go to Gipper.com, start creating custom branded content for your school's social media channel. We also want to thank Huddle. Go to huddle.com. Huddle is how the world sees sports, and over 200,000 teams across the country use Huddle to help their athletes play better. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, and as an athletic director, our school was a Huddle school. Our coaches just love the smart cameras, the mobile apps. Of course, they love the analytics, but there's so much more. Go to huddle.com and you're going to find tools to help every athlete and every team at your school improve, as Huddle provides a professional grade solution for the challenges you face as an athletic director. At Huddle, we believe in sports and teams believe in Huddle. Go to huddle.com, join the 6 million users, and turn your school into a Huddle school. That's huddle.com. We also want to say thanks to Final Forms, the industry leader in forms and registration. But Final Forms is so much more than that. Go to finalforms.com/Jake and see how they can help your stakeholders with things like mobile accessibility. They have reminders for parents about policies, about physicals, and all the forms that come when you have an athlete in the house. Final Forms can help your coaches with things like attendance and communication. And for athletic directors, Final Forms can help you with eligibility, with rosters, and all the reports that come across your desk. You know, it's time that you take the next steps and talk to a team that's walked in your shoes. Go to finalforms.com/Jake to get started with Final Forms. We also want to say thanks to Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack. Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack are a quick, easy, and affordable way for you to collect comprehensive data that allows you to evaluate and improve every aspect of your athletic program. Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack also connects you with the parents and the student athletes in your program and allows them to give you some feedback and gives you the ability to address some small issues and keep them from turning into big issues because you didn't know about it because you hadn't done a survey. Go to athleticsurveys.com or email them at info@athleticsurveys.com to get started. If you've never used a survey to take the pulse of your parents or your student athletes, you're really missing out. Talk to the folks at Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack and let them help you take your athletic program from good to great. We also want to thank our friends at Sideline Interactive for their support. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and check out their indoor scoring tables and video boards that not only generate money for your department, but also create the ultimate game day experience for your athletes. At sidelineinteractive.com, you can schedule a live web demo and see their tables and boards in action. You can also email them at sales@sidelineinteractive.com to see exactly what their fantastic products can do for you. That's sidelineinteractive.com. And we want to say thanks to our good friends at Vital Signs. Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com and check out their interactive touchscreen video consoles and their library of templates, which will help you recognize the athletic achievements of your students, both past and present. Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. Let them help you showcase your school's diverse history and your proudest moments. You can also email them at sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com for more information. That's sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Team Building Tips on the Educational AD Podcast. Every Thursday, we've been meeting with Dan Talbot. Dan's a certified master athletic administrator, and he's the senior athletic director for the Polk County School District here in Florida. Also, he's on our executive board for the FIAAA and also very active at the national level. Dan, episode number 29. What do you have for our listeners today?
This is probably something we should have discussed in the beginning. But you think of different things, but I titled this one "Things That Can't Be Undone." And as an athletic director, there's things that you need to know and understand that in your duties that I call them, they can't be undone. And the best example is this, and it happened to me once in my career, and it's the worst feeling in the world. You're covering a game. The crowd's there. People are excited. It's supposed to be a big game. The popcorn's popping at the concession stand. People are eating, having a good time. The teams are warming up. Everything's going great. You're kind of like, sitting around wondering why we're having things, come on, it's game time. Let's get this thing rolling. And you also get this, feeling, friggin' officials, we're waiting on them. And then you realize, the officials aren't there. And the first thing I want is like, oh my God, did I even check? Did I put them in the system to get officials? And of course that night, I didn't. The crowd was there, the teams were there, everything, tickets purchased. It was a great night, and the athletic director forgot to get officials for that night. And so I entitled it, and you can't really, and it's hard to come back from that. Because in this day and age with official shortage, you're not going to be able to just call up 3 people and get them there, or 2, however many you need, and get them to show up and those things. So those things that it just can't be undone. Another thing, if transportation doesn't show up, did you order a bus? Did you have transportation? Are those things in line? It's very difficult, to come back from that. Another one, we had an athletic director in our district years ago that used to have their athletic secretary check student eligibility. And their soccer team was highly ranked in the nation and was odds-on favorite to win the state championship. And there was a miscommunication on eligibility, and come to find out, there was a student athlete that should not have been participating and did all season. And unfortunately, they had to vacate the playoffs and forfeit their whole entire season. So, as an athletic director, you got to know and understand your role, where, to me, if I'm going to play an ineligible athlete, and not on purpose, but if there's going to be an ineligible athlete slip through the cracks, which it does happen, I want to be able to say that I truly made a mistake and it was my fault, and I didn't put that off on someone else. So when I was a school-based administrator, I always took control. I had an athletic secretary with me, and I had people always willing to help, because people want to be involved in athletics. There's a plethora of help, it seems like, at some schools versus others, depending on where you're at. But I always wanted to make sure that I was solely responsible for the things that I always titled that can't be undone. Ordering officials for events and then double checking those officials, because you can go into a system we call Arbiter and look 3 weeks prior and have 3 officials. But if they don't drop the game, if they drop the game and then no one has it, you got to go in the week of and verify. Transportation. Our district is fortunate enough where every day an email gets sent out to all the athletic directors of all the bus trips that are being sent out that day, with the bus driver's bus number and cell phone number, so they can verify, that there is a bus picking that team up and taking them to so-and-so or whatever. So if we're not on that list, at least we have 5 or 6 hours to then correct the problem. Eligibility. It's so important to make sure that all the student athletes that are supposed to be on the field are under the rules, supposed to be out there. No one's playing that shouldn't be, because you also got to think about, not only are you jeopardizing probably your career, depending on, your parents' involvement in that situation, but you also got 25 other, 15, 60, whatever other student athletes that you need to think about that have done all the right things that will probably be punished for your mistakes. So things that can't be undone, my suggestion is take control of them, have those strictly under your realm of duties that you need to check on. And some of you are probably laughing right now going, things that can't be undone and things that could be undone are still my responsibility. I got no help. I'm all by myself in this department, which is very true in a lot of departments too. But just make sure, even if you are by yourself and you have no help, have a list of priorities that you got to make sure that are first and foremost on your list. Because let's face it, if the officials don't, you got someone that's super excited, that's taking your parking money and parking cars for you, but all that's irrelevant if the officials don't show up for the game. So you can get away if your parking attendant is late or doesn't show up. Yeah, it hurts you financially, but it's really not the end of the world. It's the end of the world if you don't have a bus for the kids, if you're playing an ineligible athlete, all those different things. So know those roles within your department, that things that just can't be undone. And you got to make sure, because I always feel like, with an athletic director, it's very difficult for us to make mistakes. And it frustrates me when I go out into the real world, even if I'm grocery shopping or taking my car in for service, of how many people just accept the fact that they can make mistakes, or within your school system, that it's okay to make mistakes, where I feel like every student athlete has to be cleared through a process. And if I make a mistake and the student athlete's not eligible and they participate, we have to forfeit. I always feel the pressure for athletic directors is extremely high, because I feel like there's a lot of parts of our job where we can't afford to make a mistake. And so make sure those are at the top of your list, because like I said, yes, if the park attendant doesn't show up for an athletic contest, yes, you lose money. But at the end of the day, you can always recover from that. You can't recover when, both teams are there like I did. And, when I walked out of my office knowing that I didn't put the officials into the system, I had to walk back out there and tell them I had 2 choices. I could lie and say that the officials association messed up, or you could just take it. And what I did was I took the easy way out and just told them, look, it was my fault. I forgot to order officials. We're going to play this game tomorrow. Everyone gets in free. I reimbursed the school for the transportation coming to the game, because in my mind, I was like, I should have just lied, but then my luck, you'll have a parent that knows someone in the association or something like that's just going to ruin your credibility as an athletic director. So I just took it on the chin, apologized. And here's the nice thing is, once you apologize and you admit your mistake, it's really hard to, as I always say, keep kicking the dead horse. Mm-hmm. I always go back to the baseball steroids thing. When the media was on these people for taking steroids in baseball, the ones that admitted it said, yeah, I took it, I'm sorry. They just focused on the people that were, gained 400 pounds in 3 weeks and said, "Oh, I didn't take them. I didn't take them." And the media just went after them relentlessly until they found the proof they were looking for. Once you just admit it and move on, because everyone does make mistakes, but you got to know as an athletic director where you can, mistakes can be made and ones that just can't. And basically anything that affects student athletes, because student athletes have to be the most important thing within your department.
Yeah, you mentioned, there's so many things in the AD's job, the scheduling, the buses, the officials, et cetera. You just have to do it. But the eligibility component, um, I think it was my third year teaching. No, it was my third year of being a head coach. I just gone to a new school, and I never should have been a head coach. I didn't know what I didn't know. But the athletic director, long story short, he made a mistake on eligibility. We had a kid transfer in. We didn't play him for 2 games, and then we were getting on the bus for game 3, and he said, "Hey, Billy's okay. Go ahead and play him." And so we put him in for like 5 minutes at the end of the game. And when we got back, he asked me, this is before cell phones. He goes, "Did you play Billy?" And I go, "Yeah." And he just goes, and the kid was ineligible. The AD had made a mistake. And again, I'm not a young coach. I don't know what's going on, but we had to forfeit that game, and that kept us out of the playoffs. It was just a huge, huge deal. But it was a great lesson for me, and I never forgot it. And so when I became an AD, I mean, I was a bear with those coaches about, hey, the kids got to be eligible. We got to have all these things. You know what it's like in Florida, all the forms. And I would share that story with them so they could understand where I'm coming from. And when maybe one of the area schools in our geographic area, there was an eligibility issue. We had our rival school. They had to forfeit a district championship that they won, couldn't go to the playoffs. And I had my parents going, "Well, hey, they had to forfeit. That means we get to go." And I go, "Well, no, in Florida, you don't fill brackets." So that was, but I would share that with our coaches. Hey, I don't want to be in my boss's office explaining why we had to forfeit this championship. That's why I'm such a bear on all these eligibility things, because you're absolutely right. They cannot be undone.
Yeah, and that's what terrifies me as an athletic administrator, especially in my role, is because having a lot of different schools is you know you hear something new every day with eligibility. And in Florida, I mean, it's crazy. We have no rules down here. It seems like we kind of the districts make the rules. We have 3 bulleted points. But student athlete transfers. It's crazy. If a student athlete transfers prior to the season, they're eligible, and but if they transfer during the season and want to continue to play that season, we basically just said, look, you go through an appeal process, tell us, why you left one school to go to another, and then we'll afford that opportunity. But it is terrifying, especially for me, because I got so many schools that I got so many unique situations that, I can't be wrong, because the minute I say, Susie's good to go, then the school's off and running with Susie. And it comes back that, Susie wasn't good. That's why I always take my time, find out the situation, do some research, take their name, their student ID, really try to track back and take a few days to, find out why they transferred, or are they a true move in? Because, the thing is, like, hey, we just had a student athlete move here. They should be eligible. I mean, they just got here. They just moved here. Well, in Florida, if any student athlete was punished from another state or another district, and maybe lost the privilege to participate in athletics, we have to then honor that. So we still got to reach out to the previous school and do some information and digging. So really take your time when it comes to eligibility. Like I said, we've had teams lose championships, forfeit games, and it's very, like you said, you can't come back from that.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, great lessons for all of our listeners. Take care of those details. Have your organizational system in place. Call another AD if you have questions. And speaking of that, if one of our listeners wants to reach out, find out how you do things in Polk County, what's the best way they can get a hold of you, Dan?
Best way to get a hold of me is my cell phone number, which is 863-661-0647. Again, 863 661-0647. And if you call it and it goes straight to voicemail, and then you call it again, it goes straight to voicemail, that's probably because I'm working on something really important, like making an eligibility ruling where I can't be distracted. Because how many times are we going through a list of student athletes and we're trying to process the list to make sure we're right, but we're taking our office calls, we're taking cell phone calls, we're texting back and forth, people are coming in our office. So when you're doing those things that can't be undone, try to close off all the external factors and really concentrate.
Yeah, great. Again, great advice. For our listeners, we've been visiting with Dan Talbot, Certified Master Athletic Administrator. We do this every Thursday on Team Building Tips. The Zoom recordings of these interviews also get uploaded to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We appreciate you listening today. Come back next time for another episode of Team Building Tips with Dan Talbot. As always, we want to thank our partners, the global community of women, and We Coach. And we want to thank our sponsors. We want to thank Vital Signs Wall of Fame. If you're looking for a great way to display your school's record boards or your Hall of Fame, go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. We want to thank Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. Go to hometownticketing.com and they'll get you set up selling your tickets online. We want to thank Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. At my schools, we use surveys for just about everything, and it's a great way to connect with your parents and your student athletes. Go to athleticsurveys.com or email them at info@athleticsurveys.com to get started. We want to say thanks to Final Forms, the industry leader in registration, and they're the official registration platform for the FIAAA State Conference. Go to finalforms.com/Jake to see what they can do for you and your school. We want to say thank you to Gipper. Start creating world-class content for your school social media channel. Go to Gipper.com. Tell them you heard about it on the podcast and use the podcast code. That's ADPOD10. Gipper.com. We want to thank Snap Mobile. Check out their entire suite of platforms at OnSnap. That's onsnap.com. We used Snap Raise, their fundraising platform, with tremendous success, and so can you. That's onsnap.com. We want to say thank you to Huddle. Go to huddle.com. See how your school can become a Huddle school. Smart cameras, mobile apps. There's always been analytics. Go to huddle.com. And finally, we want to say thanks to Sideline Interactive. We have a Sideline Interactive indoor scoring table in our gym, and it's just fantastic. Go to sidelineinteractive.com or email them at info@sidelineinteractive.com. Thanks again for listening to Team Building Tips as part of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll see you just about every day for new content on the Educational AD Podcast. Thanks for listening.